Warning, the following content may contain elements that are not suitable for some audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another top 5 video, and in this video I am going to be going through my top 5 modern horror movies that you should watch this Halloween. Let's get straight into it.
Now it's your turn!
What's going on, guys? So yes, today we're doing another top 5 video, and in this one we're going to be looking at my top 5 modern horror movies. So I'm a big fan of like the old 80s movies, like horror movies like Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The list goes on. I think most of the best horror films are from that time period, between maybe the late 70s and early 90s. Then there was a big gulf where nothing really come out. The horror films come out, nothing really that great come out horror movie wise. I think then we went through that whole transition where Saw came out, which was a very good film. The first one, it was very clever, and then it just turned into a gore fest. I think movies just went horrifically violent and gory as opposed to scares. So I think up to like Scream was the last sort of really decent horror movie, I think, in my opinion. Then we had that whole gulf of violent films, like I said. Hostel, I mean, I've never watched it, never seen it, don't think that's good. And you got movies now, like in recent times, like The Human Centipede again, which I just think are sick. I mean, I just don't see the appeal to that. For me, you know, horror movies should be sort of scary and tense. So I've put together 5 horror films that I think are really great modern horror films. Okay, number 5 is Cabin in the Woods. Cabin in the Woods was released in 2011. It's got a big star in it, in Chris Hemsworth. This movie really surprised me. I didn't think it would be very good. It's the sort of film that's a bit like Marmite. I think you either love it or hate it. People I've watched it with have loved it. People I've watched it with hated it. I always tell people, well, it's a brilliant film, and then they go, okay, let's watch it. Or, oh yeah, that's brilliant, like I think. It's got a massive twist in it. I'm not going to get into the twist at all, but it's got one of the biggest twists in a movie I've ever seen. I think it can be quite funny in places, but ultimately I think it is a horror film. I'll categorise it as a horror film. But yeah, really enjoyed that film. If you want to watch a horror film with a difference, Cabin in the Woods is for you. Number 4 is Sinister. Sinister came out in 2012. A guy, Ethan Hawke, again, big name in it. He's a writer. He does sort of like crime fiction, and he's looking at murders, and he moves into this house where a murder happened without his wife and that knowing. He finds these videotapes in this attic where he then finds evidence of the murders, and a plot unthickens that there's actually supernatural stuff going on. Really scary film, I think. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I would say for me, Sinister is actually a really good modern horror film. Okay, number 3 is The Witch. The Witch came out in 2015, and again, not for everyone, this movie, I don't reckon, but I really liked it. It's sort of set in like the colonial times of America, where they've just sort of, you know, gone over to America and that sort of era. It's all very new, and there's this sort of creepy, weird stuff goes on, and to do with witches and stuff, obviously, and there's this goat called Black Phillip. Again, I won't get too much into the story if you haven't seen it, but definitely something I think is worth watching. I really enjoy it. Okay, number 2 is It Follows. It Follows came out in 2014. Again, another horror film with a twist. It's not that scary, so if you're going into this to be really scary, it's not really scary. But for me, it's just unnerving. The music in it is fantastic. I absolutely love the music. The premise again is very weird. These this girl's been stalked by this entity. You don't really understand what the entity is, but basically the entity stalks someone. Basically it's passed on through different people. So basically someone's being followed by this creature, they have sex with someone else, and after the person they have sex with is then being stalked by the creature. It's a really interesting premise of a movie, and you know, it's really unnerving at the start how she gets it, which I won't get into again, no spoilers. It's just weird. It's a weird film, creepy film. There's just something about it that I really love. Again, like I said, it's not that scary, but it's quite sort of, you know, you get that sort of anxious feeling, I guess, to a degree. I just really love it. I really enjoy it. So, you know, again, maybe a Marmite film, you either love it or hate it. I really like it. So I think if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out and see what you think of It Follows. Okay, before we go to number one, I'll do some honourable mentions of modern horror films that just didn't make the cut. The Conjuring, I think, is a good film. Ghosts, stuff like that. You know, the Annabelle films and that. And I've now just recently watched The Nun.
Hello.
They're all reasonably decent to a degree. The Nun wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. But The Conjuring's a pretty good modern horror film. The Evil Dead remake I really love, and it didn't just quite get the cut as well. But as remakes go, one of the best remakes, I think. And then the sequel to the Blair Witch Project, The Blair Witch, that recently came out. Again, I thought was really well done. I thought it was really scary in the cinema, and I really enjoyed that film. Okay, so number one, modern horror film has to be Stephen King's It. It has to be It. I loved it, absolutely loved it. Went to cinema twice to see it. Obviously came out in 2017. Again, not that scary, not that terrifying unless you're absolutely petrified of clowns and you're not going to want to watch it. But I just love the way it was done, the nostalgia of the old movie for me as well, from the 90s, and I really loved it. I like the way they brought it up to the 80s rather than the original one in the story in the book was like in the 50s or 60s. I really loved it, being set in the 80s obviously. Just loved everything about it. Loved all the kids in it. I loved Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. Just really well done. You know, he put his own twist on Pennywise, and I just thought it was a really well done movie. I absolutely loved it. Okay guys, that's my top 5 modern horror films to watch this Halloween. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you maybe have learnt of a couple of films possibly that you might want to watch this Halloween if you hadn't already seen them. If you have enjoyed this video guys, please give this video a like, it really helps me out. Leave comments in the comment section below about what horror films made, I'd say after 2010, you've enjoyed. I think from about 2010 onwards, 2011 onwards, horror films really have upped their game. We are getting some really good horror films coming out nowadays. And there will be others that I didn't mention in this list, but you know, it's all personal choice. These are my top 5. And if you haven't already guys, consider subscribing to the channel for more pop culture related videos. Obviously there's been a lot of horror and Halloween themed stuff this month in October, but that's not all I do. I do other stuff with video games, retro video games, collectibles like Funko Pops and other toys. So if any of that stuff interests you, please check out my other videos and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Okay guys, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Take it easy.